which is actually often known as the Paid Family Leave Bill. And that bill is really a labor of love, not just for me, but for the 73 sponsors in the House of Delegates and the 22 sponsors in the Senate, as well as a number of supporters we have in the Montgomery County Council and county councils actually across the state. The reason there's so much support for this legislation is because all of us are people with real lives who understand the demands of the modern economy on our families. So for me, I have a 90-year-old grandmother who I adore. I have 2 parents, and I'm a single mom with 2 kids, one with special needs. I worry about the burden of caregiving that's on me, but I worry even more about the burden that will be on my daughter. However, I'm not just a family person, I'm also an employer. I understand tight budgets, I understand the need to meet payroll and how challenging that can be. I've been both the pregnant employee who needs paid maternity leave and the employer who does not know how she's going to pay for that. And it's true when we talk about businesses that they are like extended families. And when an employer is faced with an employee who is facing cancer, or a parent with dementia, or the joy of welcoming a new child, I know that businesses want to help. And I know it's in the business interest to help. I also know that it is in the state's interest to help. So that's why we introduced this legislation, which is the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. It works very similar to an unemployment insurance program, but for short-term absences from work, providing 12 weeks of partial wage replacement, 66% up to $1,000 a week. If you get a serious illness like cancer, or if your child is in a car accident, or if your aging parent needs help transitioning into a long-term care facility, or if you have a new baby. It's going to help in all of these situations. It's going to help you be able to pay the rent when you are facing serious life challenges. It's not a new idea. Existing programs in New Jersey and Rhode Island and California work really well. And in fact, every other country in the world has paid family leave, with the exception of Papua New Guinea. So we know it's good for business. We know it prevents unemployment. We know it reduces employee turnover. We know it increases employee morale. So there's a really good reason for the business communities to support this. The workplace, in fact, has changed. In 1950, 33% of all women were in the workforce. Today, nearly 80% of women are in the workforce, and 57% of mothers of newborn children are in the workforce. Families are dependent on working women, and both women and men are responsible for caregiving. Yet only 13% of workers currently have access to paid family leave. And these are almost entirely highly paid workers. In real life, what does that mean? According to the Washington Post, 23%, nearly 1 in 4 new mothers, returned to work less than 2 weeks after giving birth because they could not afford to take unpaid leave. We know these programs work because in California, after they passed this, African American mothers went from an average of 1 week of maternity leave to 7 weeks. We know these programs reduce infant mortality, they increase immunizations, they increase breastfeeding rates. There was a new study out just this week that say it reduces child abuse. It improves recovery from illness, the list goes on and on and on. We also know that family caregivers face long-term economic consequences, with working women who are also caregivers being 2.5 times as likely to live out their final years in poverty. So I think it's incumbent upon us to modernize our economy, to catch up with the rest of the world. That's why I introduced this bill. That's why we're fighting hard for it this year in the Maryland General Assembly. And you're going to hear from a number of people who are really invested in this legislation. I would like to say that we had a great partnership going on right now with Montgomery County. There's a U.S. Department of Labor grant that they are fulfilling. One of the components of that grant was data for us to use at the state level to really look at what utilization rates in Maryland will look like when we implement this program. So that data is going to be released tomorrow, so I would very much like to thank the county for their help with that. Having real numbers as to what this program will cost is what's going to help us pass this legislation. So I'm tremendously grateful for the county for their partnership on that. I'm also incredibly grateful for my friend and County Council Member Tom Hucker for pulling this event together and also being such a champion on these issues for so long. He was the lead co-sponsor of a job-protected leave bill for new parents that we did in 2014, which is the foundation for this next push. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Councilmember and former Delegate Tom Hucker.
you every day in Annapolis. And thanks to Delegate Moon and Councilmember Young and all the advocates that came out this morning, and all of you. We're here to acknowledge 3 facts I think that have really been ignored for too long, but seem very obvious to all of us. One is Maryland workers start families. All workers and their families eventually get sick, and more workers need to care for aging or ill relatives. But the U.S. remains, as Delegate Kelly said, the only developed country without a paid family leave system. Papua New Guinea is always good material at paid leave press conferences, but I think we don't want to be in that company any longer. It's time for Congress to step up and act on this issue. Raise your hand if you think that's going to happen. 23 years ago, they did that when they passed the Unpaid Family and Medical Leave Act, but there's 2 big problems with that. One is it only really affects large employers, and 2, most of us can't afford to take extended unpaid leave. And so there's a lot of American workers that have been left out. It's too bad Congress has waited 23 years to update and expand that law. That's exactly why we need to do that in the state of Maryland. Let me give you a few reasons why I think this is really important to me and my district. One is that this is very good for parents. It's obvious, but having a baby, anybody here who's had a baby knows having a baby is stressful enough. As policymakers, we want our new parents focused on their infants, focused on their babies, not focused on their jobs. Too often, the birth of a child becomes a path to poverty for some of our most vulnerable citizens, especially working class folks, single parents, and recent immigrants. And according to the Department of Labor, as Delegate Kelly said, 1 in 4 women are returning to work within 2 weeks. Where is the baby going? No parent should be forced to leave their baby with a neighbor, with a friend that isn't prepared to take care of the baby. No parent should be forced to leave it in an unlicensed or child care center that they're not confident in. Parents need the peace of mind that comes with paid family leave. Second, this is really good for babies. We know how important it is for infants to be with their mothers and fathers for nursing and bonding reasons. Delegate Kelly mentioned what happens with the outcomes you wouldn't necessarily expect that don't get enough attention, with positive outcomes on birth weight, infant mortality, and on nursing. One study found even long-term higher educational attainment, teen pregnancy rates, lower teen pregnancy rates, and higher IQ from children of parents who have had paid family leave. And the last point I want to make is that this is really necessary given our child care crisis. As policymakers, we have failed to create enough affordable child care to keep up with demand in Montgomery County or in the state of Maryland. So new parents are often forced to leave their babies in settings that they're not comfortable with. They need high quality child care. We don't have enough of it, and that's why they need more time to identify high quality child care, to get through a waiting list that they're often on, and that's why they need parental leave. This is also a very stark class issue in my district. I represent a great swath of income levels in my district. We have a lot of upper income parents who are companies that have very generous paid leave policies, savings to take more leave when they have to, and they can afford decent child care. We have many also working class families that are one accident or one illness or one baby away from being in a devastating situation. They really need the security that comes with this bill as well. Thank you so much to Delegate Kelly and all the advocates.
Tom is such a champion on these issues, and I think he mentioned federal action. I just want to point out Joan Kleiman here from Chris Van Hollen.
Karen McManus.
I'm sorry, Karen McManus. Sorry, forgive me. I wrote down Karen, I said Joan. Karen, and also Lori Edberg from Senator Mikulski's office here. I know that they're both champions of this issue on the federal level, and we appreciate their support. So actually, I'm going to shake things up a bit. We did just get joined by Councilmember Reamer. Do you want to say a few words? I mentioned earlier that we had a partnership with the county, and the data that's coming out of that grant we're going to be presenting tomorrow at the hearing. So tremendously grateful for the data analysis at the state level in terms of what utilization rates would look like, and tremendously grateful for that partnership. And Councilmember Reamer has been a real leader on that.
Well, thank you, Delegate Ariana Kelly, and my friend Tom Hucker, Councilmember Hucker as well, for leading this initiative today and helping get some momentum going for this legislation, or has a lot of momentum, but bringing it here to Montgomery County, such an important issue. I am also very strongly passionate about the need to add family leave. I think it's really, one of the key pieces of the social insurance agenda in this country that is missing. We have Social Security, we have disability, we have Medicare, we need family leave, and we need long-term care. And ultimately, the best policy, of course, would be to have family leave as part of Social Security. And that is a project for our lifetimes to win and fight for and to win. But we need to model these policies at the state and local level to build towards the ultimate vision of a coherent national social insurance policy. And it's exciting to see across the country these initiatives getting momentum at the state level, demonstrating real results, progress, affordability, and real outcomes. And we're really hopeful that we'll get this through at the state. And I just want to thank Ariana Kelly. She brought to me the idea of applying to the Department of Labor to get a grant to study how a local paid family leave policy could be designed in a state where we don't have temporary disability insurance pools. Now, we may get a temporary disability insurance pool, so there's lots of complications, but we're working together on this goal with the Center for American Progress, the Institute for Women's Policy Research, to design a local policy as well. And it may be like the minimum wage, like the EITC, like paid sick days. We have a strong policy at the state level, and then local governments able to add to that if that's their desire. So working towards this goal, and again, thank you for what you're doing to the advocates as well.
We're going to be done with the legislators soon. I know you guys want to hear from the real people, which is what I want to hear from as well. But my friend Pat Young came all the way from Baltimore County because he is so committed to this issue. And I think he should speak for a little bit because he is coming from a different county, from Montgomery County. He can talk about how this is really an important issue statewide. And if we need to go county by county, Baltimore County is all in my opinion. So come on up, Pat.
Thank you. I won't be brief, but I wanted to make sure, want to thank Delegate Kelly for inviting me out, and the fact that this is important to me and a lot of folks from Baltimore County. Doesn't just sit in Montgomery County. There are a lot of folks across the state that recognize the importance of this issue. Made the trek down here, happy to do it. I'd be happy to do it again. I think that the fact that we've been working, Delegate Kelly's been working on this for so long, we continuously get closer and closer to something that's going to affect a lot of low-income folks, and a lot of other folks who just could benefit from not having to worry and having peace of mind of having a child, not having to worry about choosing work over bonding with your new son or daughter. I stand here not just as a delegate, but also as a new father. My son's 8 months old, and having just recently gone through this conversation about what do we do, how do we balance work for me and work for her, and then thinking about the future, about having another child and having to bank leave so that we can have time for both and not just spend it on one. That's not a conversation that should be happening in America, if you ask me. It's not a conversation that should be happening in a first world country. It's sad that now be going through it, that recognizing the fact that others have to do the same thing, and in a lot worse situation than I am, and knowing how challenging it was for me, and only imagining how challenging it would be for other folks. The last piece, I'm also standing in front of you as a veteran. This particular bill also takes into consideration military issues as well as veterans, reservists, active duty folks. It's stressful enough to have to deploy when you have family, and even when you may have a wife who's pregnant or somebody deploying, that's not a guarantee that you're going to get time back. It doesn't stop the deployment cycle. You might be lucky to get home for a few weeks, or maybe even a week, if you're in the middle of a deployment, to come back and see them. This gives peace of mind, another piece of peace of mind, to military folks. And I'm happy to stand here. Thank you for the councilmen as well as the delegates that came in support. And I'm all in, and I know a lot of folks in Baltimore County are in too. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. What Delegate Young mentioned about the veterans, I just want to make sure everybody here knows that the Veterans Caucus is in strong support of this legislation, which we're very thankful for. Another group of people who are very supportive of this legislation are those who are struggling with cancer, and so I would like to call up Cindy Carter from the Cindy Carter's Cancer Support Foundation is here, right behind me. There you are.
Good morning. I'm Cindy Carter, Executive Director of Cancer Support Foundation. We deal with cancer families everywhere in the state, over 10,000 since 2005. If you have cancer and you live in Maryland, these are the best of times and these are the worst of times. These are the best of times because we have the best medical anywhere in the world. These are the worst of times because what my clients run into. Most of my clients have jobs. Most of them are not able to work. They either get laid off because that is all legal. If they're not able to do their job, they get fired. For whatever reason, they have no job. Now, they're going to be treated for cancer, and we never see that an issue. But how are they going to keep the lights on? How are they going to pay for the car? How are they going to keep a roof over their head? This is what we deal with every day. And because once they've gone through their savings and their friends and family don't answer the phone anymore, then they have to go and knock on the door, social services, energy assistance. So a legislation like this would actually help to make those funds be able to be used more effectively. 3 months' time, the family paid leave is a godsend. It's the difference between whether my clients can continue to stay in treatment and know they're going to have the lights on, or whether, like some of them have decided, you know what, I'm going to get evicted, I can't pay for my car, I'm going to lose my power, I'm going to stop my treatment. And we now in the state of Maryland are beginning to see more and more of that, simply because how are they going to keep their family together? So having the ability to have some income coming in is going to make a major difference. We have many, many people that go through all their savings, go through all what the family and friends can do. The last 3 months, 4 months, they knock on our door, they call us and say, you know what, I've got to stop my treatment now because I've run out of money. There is no unemployment, you can't get unemployment. My business does not have short-term disability or long-term disability. Well, how am I going to keep my family together, especially the single parents? I'm going to stop my treatment 3 to 4 months before it's finished. And that is the difference between life and death for a lot of our cancer families. This kind of legislation will help to save lives. It'll make it so that people that are ill, that need to go through this treatment, can concentrate on getting better and also keep their families together. When somebody is diagnosed with cancer in Maryland, everybody in their family is diagnosed. It impacts the whole family. And they have to pull their children out of everything the children are doing because there is no money to pay for this. So Cancer Support Foundation, I speak for the cancer families in the state of Maryland, are very much in favor of this legislation. And I'm very, very grateful for the delegate to really be pushing this. Thank you.
We are very, very grateful for the advocates who do the heavy lifting and the hard work on these types of issues. Another wonderful advocacy group that is a strong supporter of this legislation is Moms Rising. That's a group that I used to work at, so that's where this issue really came to me. That's where I really began to understand the interconnectedness between the economic justice issues and the women's issues. And I would like to, Ruth, are you going to talk, or is it just Colleen? Just Colleen. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Colleen Jenkins is a Moms Rising member, and she has a personal story that she would really like to share with you as to why she's a citizen activist on these issues.
Good morning. My name is Colleen Jenkins. I live in Perry Hall in Baltimore County. I may have come further than Delegate Young did. I have a beautiful 10-year-old daughter, and I'm a proud member of Moms Rising. I'd like to thank Delegate Kelly and Councilmember Hucker for their leadership on this issue and inviting me here to tell you my story. So I'm here today to talk about the important issue of access to paid family leave. When I was working as a physical scientist at the State University in 2005 when I became pregnant with my daughter, I didn't get maternity leave paid. I took a leave without pay, and on top of not getting paid, I had to pay my full health insurance premium out of pocket. I had good health insurance, so this was over $1,000 a month, which is more than my rent. I had to go back to work at 5 weeks after my daughter was born, against my doctor's recommendation. Most doctors recommend 6 weeks. If I'd been eligible for paid leave, I could have gone to work more gradually. I could have avoided spending thousands of dollars, going deeper into debt. Lack of paid leave combined with an expensive health premium made our financial situation very difficult. While I was on leave, I made a lot of late payments, and I had to make some very difficult choices about which bills to pay. We wouldn't have been able to live like that for very long. So I returned to work earlier than either I or my daughter were ready for. Fiona's father was deployed at the time, so my only option was to put her into child care at 5 weeks old. I had trouble finding care because most facilities don't accept children under 6 weeks. Thankfully, I had a friend who knew of a home provider who was willing to make an exception for her. I'm absolutely convinced that having to go back to work so soon after Fiona was born contributed to my low milk production and my ultimate inability to breastfeed. I was already having difficulty with that, and putting her into daycare disrupted her schedule even further. I did continue to try for weeks, but ultimately I failed, and I was extremely disappointed. I knew that breast milk was the best choice for my baby. When I went back to work, I was exhausted from both childbirth and caring for a newborn on my own, and it felt like a failure because I couldn't breastfeed my daughter. Access to paid family leave would have helped our family avoid economic insecurity and allowed me to stay home with my daughter for at least the 6 weeks that my doctor recommended. We would have had more time to bond. I could have introduced daycare into her schedule gradually and established a better breastfeeding routine. The first week of a child's life is such an important time, both on an emotional level and for the child's physical development. Too many parents feel economic pressure to cut this time short. It shouldn't be that way, and I want Fiona to grow up in a state and a country that recognizes that families come first, and that having paid family leave is a winning idea for families, for businesses, and for the economy.
So I want to thank Colleen for sharing her story and also point out, everybody, Fiona is here with us today. Thank you, Fiona. And I also want to point out, because Colleen brought it up, that it's not legal to put a child under 6 weeks old in daycare in Maryland. So that's one of the reasons why the Maryland Family Network is a very strong supporter of this legislation as well. Those are Maryland's child care providers, and they want to make sure that we pass this bill because they understand that families are right now in an impossible position if we don't do something. So speaking of families, another one of our great supporters for this legislation is working families, Maryland working families. We have, they recognize the importance of this legislation. Charlie? They've been wonderful, so I'm really, really appreciative to Charlie.
Thank you. I'm really, on behalf of our 30,000 members and our affiliates, I'm really proud to stand here today with Delegate Ariana Kelly and Delegates Moon and Young and Councilman Tom Hucker and Reamer. This is a really important issue. And I'd like to thank them for their leadership on this issue. Working families across the country, our national network of organizations are pushing this in Connecticut, in New Jersey, in New York. Why? Because this is in this country when it comes to economic and financial stability. When Governor Hogan said no to federal funds to study paid family leave insurance program, these leaders would not take no for an answer. They found another way because they know that life happens and that paid family leave, that a paid family leave program will make our state stronger. Over the past 6 months, Maryland Working Families has knocked on nearly 8,000 doors across the state to ask families about their financial stability. We heard countless stories about the economic and emotional challenges of being caregivers, of being pulled between earning enough to pay the bills and taking time to care for a child, a parent, a partner, or like our governor, taking time to care for themselves. Though their individual stories and circumstances varied, there was a common takeaway. Real life demands paid family leave. Paid family and medical leave insurance is good for families. Studies show it leads to healthier children and seniors. It's good for our communities because it helps maintain economic security for families. It's good for business because economists say it leads to lower employee turnover and increased worker productivity. Paid family leave is good for Maryland because we all do better when our neighbors, our communities, and our economy does better. Maryland Working Families calls on our leaders in the General Assembly and we call on Governor Hogan to do the right thing this year and establish paid family and medical leave insurance. Thank you.
So as I mentioned when I introduced the bill, one of the things we tried to do when designing a program that would work across the state of Maryland was look at what is working in other states. California's had a program for a long time, New Jersey has a program for several years now, and Rhode Island has a new program up and running. And we designed the Maryland program to look like that because we knew that that was a design that we had data that showed it worked for business as well as individuals. And with that, I want to introduce Julie Barati from Denison's Brewing Company, which is a business that is supportive of the legislation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Delegate Kelly, Councilman Hooker, good to see Delegate Moon, Councilman Reamer. My name is Julie Barati. I am one of the co-founders and co-owners of Denison's Brewing Company in Silver Spring, Maryland. When Delegate Kelly first told me about this bill, I was personally very excited about it. Paid time off, in my opinion, is just a common sense thing. You need to have it to have healthy communities, healthy employees, and it's something that, for me, it just is the right thing to do. Our company is still somewhat in the nascent phase. We're a year and a half old, but we offer health care to our full-time employees, health insurance. Anyone who works 30 hours or more a week, whether they're hourly or salaried, we offer health coverage for them. And it's not cheap to do, but at the end of the day, not everything is about the bottom line. For us, it's the right thing to do. Having the ability to offer paid time off, paid family leave for our employees is super important, but it's something that businesses like ours, I think there are a lot of businesses like ours that want to be able to do that and want to provide that type of benefit for people that work for them. They can't necessarily afford it. So this legislation, the approach that's taken, it's a way for businesses to be able to offer this really important benefit to their employees, but not a huge lift and not a huge burden on them. And it's just better for the community, it's better for the business, it's better for the employees. And I am very grateful as a business owner in Montgomery County, and also as a lifelong resident of Montgomery County. I was born and raised here. I'm just proud of the work that all these folks up here are doing, and I think this is really important. Thank you.
We only have two more people to speak, so I thank you for your patience. Now I'd like to introduce McDonald Davis from the Silver Spring Urban District, and I think also McGeo. Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Silver Spring Urban District, you are within our community now. And normally I come to work at 2 o'clock, so by now I should be still sleeping. 4 years ago, 30 employees of Montgomery County have worked for a combined 60 years with all insurance. From that, I got sick while working. Till today, I'm still suffering from not having insurance. Every 3 months, I got to see the doctor. One of our co-workers who fortunately later on left, Lucille Dink, at the time we were working, his wife was pregnant. She gave birth. He had a 4-year-old daughter who got sick, no insurance. His wife ended up leaving her job, losing her job because she did not have paid time off. It is repulsive that men who sleep with women, married to women, do not want to see these women having paid time off for maternity leave and other leave that are necessary, that a mother has to be home with a child. We at SSUD, Silver Spring Urban District, do support the bill that maternity leave, time off, paid, should be given to women and to others. In third world country, there are 90 days given to every pregnant woman who gave birth to a child. And if there is a need for those who have cesarean, they are given more time off paid. We need this bill to be passed. And to those politicians who are standing against this bill, let them take note. When the time comes for re-election, We will rally the women against you, and you know what the women can do. Rather than trying to build a wall of division, it is time to build relationship with the women by having this bill passed. Thank you.
I love the spirit, and I especially love when I'm not the only one who needs to bring it, so thank you. Thank you to everyone here who's standing behind me. I think in closing, I just want to say, what we're intending to do with this legislation is create a safety net program that will benefit our entire society. That's why you see a broad coalition. It is about women and babies. I'm not going to pretend it's not, because it's the right thing to do for women and for children, but it is also incredibly important for men. It is also incredibly important for our seniors, and it's profoundly important for our business community that we address this issue. It's really rooted in the fact that women are in the workforce now in astounding numbers. That's not going to change. So it's our moral obligation as a state to address that issue to help the entire community. So with that, I thank you so much for coming here and encourage all of you to support House Bill 740.